implied in one of the images I use, but a really important point to bring up is this. You might look at this and say, oh man, like I'm doomed because, I've made these choices and I've done this and I've done that, and well, now there's nothing I can do, like my heart is calloused, and I can no longer pair bond. Well, that's not true. And actually, we'll go back to the issue of the calluses on the fingers, right? If you stopped playing guitar for a while, eventually, what happens to your fingers?
They get soft again.
They get soft again. They can feel again, right? Okay. If I go like this, I can feel more out of my right side than my left because, But so that's true. If a person, has been living a certain way, and then they say, okay, you know what? I need to chill out. I need to kind of, do this the right way, okay, then there's a distinct possibility that things can, in fact, I will say personally, my take on this, I've never seen like a study of this, but just like what I've seen in my 4 years of ministry, is that in those couples who have really made that choice and said, you know what, we're going to do the right thing, like you'll meet couples who, before they were married, they had any number of partners, and then they kind of had that change, and they said, you know what, I'm going to do this right. Okay, oftentimes it's a religious thing, but they said, I'm going to do this right. And then they meet someone else like that, and you have this couple, even though they've had a number of partners, they don't sleep together until they're married. They don't live together until they're married, okay? So they kind of change the whole way of doing it. I firmly believe that those couples are going to be fine, okay? So the message here is, don't worry about what you've done, worry about what you're going to do, okay? The other thing here, of course, is like I said, a lot of people look at this and they go, wow, that's really great. And then they go off and they do something different. Like I said with the smoking, all the energy they pour into us as kids, don't smoke, don't smoke, don't smoke. And then people smoke, right? But I would say, if I can get philosophical for a moment, okay, I would say that it's the duty of every human person to try to pursue excellence, okay? And it's a pretty non-controversial thing to say, that every human person should try to pursue excellence, okay? Whether it's with these sex and family matters, whether it's with diet, whether it's with smoking, whatever it is. You can say, I've made the choices I've made, fine, but I am going to go against the grain, counter to my previous habits, in order to live in a happy and a healthier way, okay? So that's something that I would throw out at you. Okay? Awesome. So this fourth thing, that if you add it in gives you 1% divorce rate. Actually, if you just do this fourth thing, your divorce rate is 4%. Okay? It's a somewhat rare thing. It is highly associated with religiosity, but I will explain it. They use, and I'm going to write 3 letters, I'll say what they stand for. They utilize NFP. NFP refers to natural family planning. Okay, NFP is natural family planning. Okay, so what this means is they do not use artificial birth control to avoid pregnancy. Okay, so natural family planning means that they do not utilize artificial birth control to prevent pregnancy. Now, does that mean that every sex act that they're having, they're trying to have a baby? No. What natural family planning does, and I'm not going to talk too much about it today because it's a little bit of a sidebar or tangent, but essentially what it is doing is it is using symptoms of fertility, okay, of the woman in particular, okay? It's looking for symptoms of fertility and then avoiding intercourse during those times of peak fertility, okay? I won't go into it too much. I will say that it is actually more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's better at preventing pregnancy than actually condoms, believe it or not. Condoms have a, let's see if I can remember this. Well, it has a 20% common use failure rate, okay? Which means that when condoms are used correctly, they're like 98% effective for preventing pregnancy. But every form of birth control has what's called a common use failure rate, which means that people aren't putting them on right, okay? And so because of that, they only have an 80% effectivity in the common use, okay? But natural family planning, whether it's either perfect use or common use, has a higher success rate than condoms. Okay, so it's worth looking into. It's worth Googling or something, to find out more about it. But they're avoiding pills, or avoiding condoms, or avoiding that kind of a thing. I actually wrote my master's thesis on it, so I could really go off on it, so I'm going to try and hold back. But anyway, natural family planning, if a couple utilizes that, it doesn't have to be a religious thing. Plenty of people who are non-religious use it, but it tends to be associated with Catholic religiosity, okay? But other people like it because it's not chemical, you're not using pills that kind of are tricking your body into thinking you're pregnant. That's what pills do, right? Anything that's a hormonal method of birth control, whether it's the pill, whether it's Implant-On, whether it's the IUD, which works in a separate way as well, but it also has a chemical component. What it's doing is releasing estrogen or simply progesterone in order to trick the body into believing that it's pregnant. And if your body's pregnant, you will not release another egg, for fertilization. So that's how pills work, okay? So some people like the idea of saying, well, I don't want to just be causing this chemical change in my body, okay, and a lot of other reasons, okay. So people utilize natural family planning. I put it here in the context of divorce rate, okay. So a couple, interestingly, the rates of divorce that they found, it kind of depends on the population they're looking at. The highest divorce rate they found in any one statistical group who uses NFP is 4%. The lowest they found is 0.5%. But it averages out to about 1%, okay, especially when combined with these other things, okay? Great. So any questions about any of this stuff? Okay. We see what increases or decreases a person's statistical rate of divorce, and we see, which I would say is also indicative of marital happiness, and we see, I think, that important point that what you've done or where you come from is not necessarily going to force things to go one way or another, but if you kind of pursue, actively pursue what even may feel unnatural to do the right thing according to natural law, that you can repair most, if not all of that, the calluses and damage that's been done. Okay? Any questions about any of this? All right. So I'm going to shift now to our second kind of component here, second half. And we're going to talk about once that couple is married, once they're together, okay? So you have this couple, and they have, you have this couple, and for whatever reason, they got married because, they got pregnant and they never planned on it, so okay, we better get married. Or whether it's somebody who, did everything right, and they got married, and they moved together, and then they had sex, and they had a baby, and whatever it is, it's a relationship, okay? And there are certain things that help the relationship to be successful, and there are certain things which indicate the relationship is going downhill, okay? So now we're talking about the point of marriage or after. Every romantic relationship, okay? Every married relationship, if we want to just narrow it to that, goes through 3 stages, okay? Every relationship goes through 3 stages. It is important to understand this because when things start going south in your relationship, which they will, no matter what, okay, you will recognize, oh, this is a natural progression of the relationship. So a married relationship goes through 3 stages, okay? The first stage is what I will call infatuation. Now, normally people use this term derisively. In other words, they say it's bad, or they use it in kind of a negative way. I'm not really necessarily using it that way. The fact is, when a couple is a new couple, they are in a state of extreme bliss, okay? Everything is wonderful, everything's super. It's what all that great love music is about, about can't be without you, you're the only person for me, I love you so much, my body is just crying out for you, all of this very, very intense. The kind of couples you don't really want to hang out with too much, in public. They kind of drive you nuts, okay? But they're really, really, really into each other. Now, the word infatuation, I don't know if that's the best word, but people use that word to imply that it's shallow. And I wouldn't necessarily say that it's shallow. What I would say is that is a necessary step, okay? That is a very necessary step in a new relationship because it helps to promote pair bonding, okay? If you just like marry someone and say like, oh, this is a practical arrangement, and you feel nothing for them, like that's a pretty miserable way to go through life. Don't marry someone you're not madly in love with, okay? Just don't marry someone you're not madly in love with, all right? Even though we're talking about statistics and numbers, and I don't mean to be clinical about this, okay? You definitely want to be, and in fact, here in a few minutes, I'll talk to you about how to pick a person to date and marry, okay? So you can go into it smart instead of just going in blindly, right? Okay? But this infatuation is a very, very necessary step. It's what strengthens the pair bonding, okay? It helps that couple stay together. It lays a foundation for them to be together later, okay? A newly married couple is very, very sexually active, if they wait until the wedding night. I hear it all the time, and I'll just say it kind of saddens me, you know. I'll have a couple, they are friends of mine, you know, and they get married, okay, and they don't even have sex on their wedding night because they're too tired, okay. Now, there is a point in a relationship where you don't want to have sex because you're tired. The wedding night should not be that night. Okay? You're kind of getting started off on the wrong foot, I would say, okay? Sure, 5 years in, you know, you go out, it's been a long day, the kids have been just animals just running around all over the place, you know, and you go to bed and you just kind of say, let's cuddle tonight and we're going to be fine, okay? That's fine, okay? But when you go into a marriage, that infatuation should be there. There should be all sorts of sexual activity. And actually, you know, traditional societies promote this. You know, even like the old Jewish way of getting married, like back in, you know, thousands of years ago, was you got married and they like put you in a room together and you just stayed in there for like a week. They're like, just go nuts. You know, you waited your whole life for this. You're married, just go nuts. And so there was a very intense pair bonding that took place there, okay? That's more like how it should be. Necessary step. However, this stage, I should say, comes to, in fact, let me label this, huh? 3 stages of a relationship. Sorry, that was very unacademic of me not to put that. 3 stages of a relationship. First is infatuation. The second, and remember, this is a natural progression. Is disintegration. Okay? In this stage, all of those little cute habits that he had that you found so delightful have morphed into another animal, and they now drive you up the wall. Okay? I think it's cute how she chews with her mouth open. And then over time you're like, oh my gosh, close your mouth. I can't handle this anymore. Okay? So the relationship will enter into this stage. Okay? It's just what happens. And the reason why, again, kind of scientifically, naturally, is that all of those chemicals that were flooding your brain before begin to subside. Okay? And all of a sudden that drug is gone. Okay? And so now you're just kind of like, you're stuck with this person. You look at him and you're like, you know, what do I do? Or whatever. I mean, it's a difficult time, okay? This is the stage that people don't expect, and this is the stage where divorce is going to happen. Couples get married and they go, oh man, you know, it's been 5 years. We just fight all the time. We fight all the time, and now, you know, maybe we made a mistake. Maybe we shouldn't be together. And eventually they divorce. Side note, fighting is not bad in a relationship. Fighting is not bad in a relationship. It's how you fight. Well, I'll talk about how to fight, right? Okay? So, disintegration. It's going to happen. All of our love stories are about this. All of our love music is about this. Okay? Nobody's writing music saying, like, even though you've put on a bunch of weight, I'm still committed to you. Okay? You know, no one's, that's not what we're celebrating in our culture. Our culture celebrates romantic love. Okay? Now, by the way, I should mention, that notion of celebrating that part of love, that romantic love, that infatuation, that is